Okay, so one of the things about business, any kind of small business, is the financial part of it. It's like how you run the financial part of it is extremely important. So we have a bookkeeper, Lindsay Miller, owns a company called Empire. She does all the actual books. But there's a method that we use, and I read this book when we first started our business called Profit First. It's by a guy named Mike Michalowicz. And he's written a handful of books, but he wrote this book called Profit First. And he wrote it for business owners to teach them a way to pay themselves first. And the whole premise is, and the book is really deep, but the whole premise is this, is to take the monthly gross income. When I say gross, okay, people don't.
I have no clue what that means.
Okay, so gross is the total income.
Mm-hmm.
So the all the money you take in. The net, the crazy thing is, my 11-year-old knows what this is. The net is the income after expenses. So for example, I'll ask Tegan, I'll say, what does this mean? He goes, this is the money that they give you. This is the money you can keep after you pay for food, after you pay for your employees, after you pay for expenses. Any kind of expense. So in food, restaurants, catering, whatever, this would be labor, this would be food, and any kind of expenses. Mm-hmm. Delivery, whatever.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what this is.
Yep.
So Michalowicz teaches that you take, he works everything off the gross. So he says everything off the gross. Now, in the book, he talks really deeper in a lot more detail than I am, but he also says, you gotta make this thing your own. So he says you gotta do a couple things. You take your gross, and then he says to have different checking accounts or savings accounts that you can transfer money to. So we have your gross income, which is, let's just say, your working account. Okay, this is the account that everything flows into. So if someone sends you an ACH payment, or someone sends you a credit card payment, or they write a check, you're gonna put it in this working capital account. So this is an account that you write checks out of, that you pay people out of, that money goes into. So everything funnels into this one account. And from here, what he says is you need to have, first and foremost, an income tax account. He says every week, every month, whatever, he says you need to take a percentage and transfer money from here into this income tax account, a percentage of the gross. So if you make $10,000, okay, there needs to be a percentage there that you are going to rotate into this income tax account, because you only pay income taxes every quarterly, every month, whatever your
You do
account.
it every month?
I do it every week.
Every week.
So I sit down, today's a Friday.
Why is that?
Because we work off of weekly cycles with payroll,
Okay.
with expenses, things like that. So our week starts on Sunday, and the last day of the week is Saturday. That's just how we roll.
Okay.
Okay. So I'll sit down later on today. The number I've come up with for my business, this is not everybody's business, this is my business. I take 7% of the gross income. Everything that comes in the account, I take 7% of that big number. And
Just because you wanted to?
I figured out over the years that 7% is the number for us that's safe.
Okay.
It's not too much that I'm holding too much money out. It's not too little where I'm gonna have to go pay a lot to the government.
Okay.
So I pay 7% into this income tax, and I literally have a savings account that is labeled income tax. And so every week, Friday at some point, I transfer 7% of gross income into this account.
And you figured that out by trial and error,
By
just
trial
trying
and error.
things out?
Just trying things out. Because I knew that 10 or 11% was too much, but I also knew that 3 or 4% was too little, and so I tried to find a happy medium. Now listen, this number has changed over the years. This number was higher. I remember one time this was like 9, 11%. I said, that's too much money. And I figured out that 7 for the last 5 or 6 years has been a great amount.
So hang on, why was it? Why'd you feel this is too much money?
Because I had too much in this bucket. I had too much in this income tax bucket.
Okay.
And it was causing me not to be able to pay the bills effectively like I needed to.
Good. Yeah.
So I go savings account. The next thing is super easy, and that's sales tax. Okay, now let me go back to this. The reason we do this is because, for me, and some people don't have to operate this way, I look at this thing 5 or 6 days a week. What is the number in here? And I don't want a bill to come due and me think that I have thousands and thousands of dollars in there, when in reality I don't. So for example, this number right here varies. It's anywhere from probably 5 or 6, depending on where you are, to 10%. So this is an exact number. This is an estimate. This is an exact number because I know how much sales tax I've got to pay.
Right.
So I take, every Friday, I take this percentage and I put it into a sales tax account. I line it up with my accountant and he pays the sales tax for me. I don't even do that. So my accountant says it's like $20 a month. It doesn't cost me anything to do it on me.
Yeah.
And so he pays all of my sales tax.
Okay.
So I transfer this because I don't want there to be like, I think there's like $6,000 in my sales tax account right now. I don't want to think I have $6,000 in that working capital account.
Right.
And go buy something or pay a bill or whatever.
Because you don't have it.
Because I don't have it.
Right.
It's in this account.
That's right.
So
Okay.
this account stays in a range. It goes up and it goes down based off of when he's paid the sales tax. Okay?
Yep.
So
That's right.
I pay income tax every week. I pay a sales tax every week. And then where he says you has to pay a profit account. Okay, now, this is money that I keep. This is my money that I can use to invest in whatever I want to. I started out at 1%. I started at 1%. I took 1% of the gross and I transferred it in this account. And it is literally named profit. And what
Seems
this
low.
It is, but I had to start out because I had to get used to taking all these numbers and putting them in different places. So we're at 7. Let's just say the average is 7 here because of tax being 5 to 10 depending on the city. So we're at 14. I'm at 15% right now off the top.
Yeah.
Okay. Now,
That's a lot.
super transparent. This number has worked its way up. It is 6% right now. So 6% of gross goes into a profit account. Okay. The next thing, okay, now let me say this. He also says to take this and transfer it into another bank. He says when you transfer it into another bank, he says to make sure that the only way you can access this at 7%, this account, is through physically going in the bank. Now he builds these guardrails in his book so that you can not have easy access, because if you don't have a lot of willpower, this can get hard.
Absolutely,
okay?
yeah.
So profit is 6%. Now I came up with this last one. About 5 or 6 years ago, I started heavily invested in real estate, and I knew that was going to be something I was going to do long term. And so I started a real estate account. So every week I pull a percentage into this real estate account, and I use that money to then fund whatever real estate I want. I got this from a guy named Grant Cardone. And Grant Cardone is a real estate guy in South Florida. He talked about his business where he used his sales business to fund all of his real estate stuff. And so I take a percentage and I put in here, my percentage is 5%. So I put 5% of my gross into this fund. This has helped me with our lake home. This has helped me with funding different deals and apartments and things like that.
Right.
This profit first thing I think is incredibly valuable. It is really, really hard for a lot of people to understand. But once you get into a rhythm of this thing, it's great. Now, Michalowicz has a ton of different categories. It can wear you out. You got to read it. You got to process it. You got to say, what is the best thing for me? Like I had an electricity account. I had a plumbing account. I had all of these things. I don't have that anymore. I have that anymore because this is the rhythm, and I've been doing it for probably 8 or 9 years now.
So this is the rhythm that you figured out that works best for you.
This is the thing.
So it varies.
Yeah.
Case by case.
So the 2 things that I did do that I have learned over the years is in this gross account, this working capital account, I got this also from Grant Cardone. Grant says to live broke. Okay? He says, and mentally I do this too, he says to work this working capital account down to 0. Work it as low as possible. For him, the reason he says, I like seeing a low number in that working capital account because that motivates him to go work, to go create more income, to work hard.
So I'm a little confused. What do you mean by 0? Get this account down to 0.
Yeah, he says take the money. He says take your money and deploy it in other ways. Number 1, so that money can make money. I.e., why I'm putting some here.
Okay.
This is also like a capital expenditure account in case I gotta buy something big. So I use this profit account in case I need to go buy something big. I don't wanna just spend all my money. So this is like almost like a dedicated savings account. But he says work it to zero, meaning he says don't have a ton of money left over all the time. He says work it down to the low as you possibly can feel comfortable with so that you can take that money and then deploy it, and so that money, he calls it babies. He says dollars are like babies. He says, and I want those dollars to go make more babies.
Like every dollar has a name.
They do.
Yeah.
That's the whole Dave Ramsey part of it. So this is a profit first for us. I love it. I think Mike Michalowicz is great. You just have to figure out what works best for you.
Yeah. So after that, then you have the income, right? Or so you have gross and you have net. So the net is what you, like you said, you pay all your workers, you pay everything.
So like, let's just say the 7 here, and let's just say the average is 7 here, so we're at 14 here, and then we're at 20 right here, right? So 14 and 6 is 20. So I take out 25% off the top. So I get 25% off the top. So if I have a margin of 25% labor cost, instead I have 30% of food, and then another whatever percentage left over, I'm taking 25% off the top and deploying it in ways that I know that it's not going to stress me. And then everything, the other 75% is honestly used to run the business, pay people to run the business. So, yeah,
That's great.
That's it.